All right, what's up, everybody? Coming at you with another recap. I'm doing this one a day early, going to be out tomorrow traveling, and I'll be back actually Tuesday and be on mobile Friday and Monday, so I won't be actively trading. But today, or this week, ended up being a really solid week. Some great opportunities showed up. Probably one of the biggest ones I've seen in months was this BYND short that I'll go over. Didn't fully capitalize on it, but it's always good to go back and study them and see what happened. All right, so let's jump into it. So this week I started off with Tesla. Kind of show you where I was looking at it here. We've had this really nice move. We had a very clean breakout in this area here around 360, and we've been flagging for the last few weeks. Holding higher, basically bouncing off the 10 and 20 day. And I was watching this area here. If it got above, I was looking to get long it, see if we got another leg. The problem was we had earnings, which came out yesterday. And so they kind of put a damper on the moves. It's a little bit more consolidated, tighter ranges. And so we didn't get the full breakout that I was looking for. But on this day, what I was actually doing was we had this really kind of bearish candle here. A lot of sellers stepped in. We were holding below VWAP. We made another attempt here, basically put in a double top right at high of day and put in another really ugly candle with volume. So I was like, this looks like it may want lower. So instead of just trading my bias, which was to the upside, I flipped it. I was like, I'm gonna take this short first. Maybe this wants to make a leg through low day, and then I can reevaluate if this turns into a long at some point. However, it just ended up chopping around and reclaiming VWAP, so I ended up stopping and then flipping long. So I was short in here. I think I took a partial stop when it reclaimed real hard, and then I added again as it was coming back down. And then then I took a full stop and flipped it long here, added here when it was breaking through this highs in anticipation of the move through high day. It ended up taking a couple more minutes of consolidation, bouncing off the 10-day in VWAP, and then we got a really nice push through high a day and made a move up towards like the 450 area where I was trimming into. Had an add here, as it consolidated for a few candles at the 10-day catch up. We got a nice another high day push. I trimmed some more, and then it just kind of came in, and I stopped as it was breaking below this range here and coming back into VWAP. And ended up being a fine stop because there wasn't a ton of range in the day. In fact, what was the high day? Yeah, this was the high day here. So did pretty good on this one. Ended up green, even though I had to take a loss on the initial short. So that was Tesla, and that was my idea behind it with the breaking out of this range and just looking for some more upside. All right, so moving on. This was a G-set parabolic short. I mean, you can see the size of the move. This was a very, despite how much volume it was doing, it was a very thin name. There was multiple halts on this move higher, and it was just very whippy, but it was incredibly overbought. I mean, if we look at the daily here, huge range, just a massive move. And so I wanted to be a part of this because more likely than not, we were going to get a big pullback, and I just needed to, you just have to trade these types of moves with less risk, right? Like these candles are moving multiple points, but I did want to be involved when this turned. So this candle started coming in, started rejecting the higher prices. We're putting in like this reverse hammer. And so I took my first short there, or my only short, and then immediately it rebitted and halted higher. I got out right before it halted, but it did another halt run, and then it reversed on the next candle. But I didn't want to keep messing with it. It was very tricky. You couldn't put real size on it because it was skipping a point or two very, very quickly, and I just didn't want to get trapped into a halt higher and not be able to manage my position. So I just moved on and ended up actually not fully reversing. I actually chopped around. It was a very difficult trade. I know some people got chopped up trading this a bunch, and it was just a tricky one. But ended up fading off the rest of the day, and then the day after, it really came in. We had it gapped higher and then traded lower. Really nice move lower on it. But anyways, that was my trade on it. Took a loss. Next one, this was just a small cap short in the morning. They had phase 3 news, which isn't really the best news to be trying to fade. The phase 3 is usually these small cap biotechs and gain a lot of momentum and usually will hold. This one was looking a little toppy. Had made a huge move, came from $2.50 basically. It was trading up into 7. It's a big move. So I did want to try and short a little bit and see if I could get a little bit of a pullback. Which I was able to do back into VWAP here. And what ended up happening is we had the initial leg, some consolidation, then we made another move here, and volume started to die off and it wasn't able to go. And we put in this little reversal candle here. I took it on the turn and ended up making a nice little grinding move back towards the moving averages and VWAP, where I was out most of my position in these 3 covers. And then it rebitted VWAP and got back above the 10-day and started to hold above, so I cut the balance of my position as it was holding. So a nice little win in the pre-market there. Gold. So this was, been talking a lot about this in the room. Gold went on a huge run, massive run. You step back and look at it on the weekly. I mean, it's every week it's gapping higher. We started getting major price acceleration. The volume profile was excellent. Just tons of volume coming in. Huge move out of this breakout. And so what I was looking to do coming in, so I missed this day to short, and I was like, all right, I want to see what this does. I think this was Monday here. I wanted to look at getting short, and of course they basically gapped up that entire move, closed it super strong, and then gapped it down the next day. So they baited in a bunch of more longs, they squeezed out some shorts, and then the next day they brought it lower. So they didn't make it easy to try and fade this, but I didn't get a short on it, but on this day, it had a huge acceleration to the downside, and that's where I was playing this bounce. We gapped lower, made a leg lower, consolidated, and then it had this huge accelerated move. For a commodity, this is a huge, I forgot what the percentage was. It was like 6-7%. That's a big move for a commodity like gold. And so as we were coming down, you notice we're starting to get wider candles. We're starting to get big volume. So I saw this and I wanted to get long at some point. These can be tricky candles if you're trading the turn because you got such a wide range now. So obviously I have to take less risk. I got about 2 points of risk here. And it ended up working. Ideally, what would happen is you come down to this candle, it closes, the next one goes below, trades back up, and closes around here. You just have a much better look, better risk profile. So this type of turn can be a little bit trickier, but it's still worth getting involved, especially when you have a huge move like this. So I did take a position, ended up working out well, almost got back to VWAP. I was just trimming into it, and then once we started pulling back in, got back below the 10-day, I took my balance off, which was a small trailer at this point. So it was just a nice little bounce play on gold. As far as where it's going to go from here, I do think that there's probably going to be some more downside to it. This was just such a huge short move. And this initial pullback was really steep. It was a really nice bounce play off the 20-day. I think that, any more of a bounce, I bet you into 390s or so is probably a shortable bounce. I think this is probably going to bounce and then maybe make another leg lower, maybe wait till the 50-day catches up, and then maybe that will be a good buy spot for more upside in the future. So we'll see what gold does. But that was the trade I had in it. RANI, so this is the first day I traded. It was a really pain in the butt trader this day. I think it was, so on these small caps you can see we had a huge gap up, big move higher, another gap up, and then the next day we had another huge run up, and I was shorting it on this day, on this trade, and it was just really choppy, pain in the butt. I started a pre-market position, and then I added as it was popping, thinking that there wasn't a ton of upside left in it, and it just kept grinding higher and higher all day long, so it turned into a real pain. I think I stopped on it a few times. Didn't take a max loss on the position because I was taking a lot of starters and taking partial stops and then adding. I'll do this a lot on these positions. I'll leg into them against me, and then once it gets to a certain point, I'll take like a half a stop on the position to see what it does, and then I can add back to it if it starts working in my favor. This was a full stop because I was sized into it pretty good here. And then this one I took a position and took partial stops, added to it, and then I took a full stop here once it didn't break down through VWAP here. I was anticipating, you know, we had this leg higher, we had a sharp pull in. I was thinking it would do this consolidation right here and then make a leg through it lower. And then just ended up holding and chopping around pretty much the rest of the day until the afternoon, where it made another push into like the 320, 330 range. So this ended up being a real pain. I took a decent loss on it, but made it all back and some on this day, which I'll go over here shortly. So look at how big this move is going into this huge gap. This is the same day BYND was gapping too. So, I mean, we're at like an RSI of like, what was this, coming in the high 90s into this gap up. Is a huge move. And as you can see, prices have a hard time holding this type of action in this sharp of a move, you know, just the span of a few days. So that was RANI's, that was my first attempt at RANI. This was just some covers on our GTI. We absolutely killed this trade. You know, I think I started shorting in this area, added into this move, and then we finally got this huge resolve to the downside where we basically did a 50% retracement from this entire move. So I'm all out of RGTI now. That was a really killer move. Made some great money. It's probably one of my best swings this year. And you know, sometimes you gotta sit through a little pain on these. I just thought that the chances of this pulling in were really good as we were coming into this, so I didn't want to stop in my position, right? We had a big accelerated day here with the most volume, and it just, on these daily mean reversions, they can be a little bit choppier at the top. This one actually ended up being pretty clean. It was only a couple days, but a lot of times, especially if you have bigger floats, bigger market caps, the tops will be a bit more complex. You'll get a couple of inside days and a down day, and then you'll put like in a little bit of a consolidation pattern, and then it will roll over. This ended up actually having some great resolve. Once it made the turn here, it was basically straight down to the mid 30s, which was great. So made some good money on that. And these were just some of the trims on RGTI. This was BYND. So basically the same thing happened with BYND as RANI, because this was on this day I was shorting it and had to eat some losses on it, trying to short into this move. I got some covers off, but ultimately just got chopped in it, trying to short this move. And so I took a loss, but then the next day I made it all back and some on the big reversal day. So this was just trying to get involved. It was very accelerated, big move on the daily. As you can see, we had these gap ups that had the news with Walmart that they were going to be distributing through them now. And so it just made a massive move. And this name is known for making big moves and getting smashed. So this was on a lot of people's radars coming into this day and this day. So a lot of people lost money on this day or shorts. And then the next day, well, I saw a lot of people with some ridiculous gains because this had a huge move. We had this crazy parabolic move, but also it had the liquidity in it to where you could put on enormous size and be able to maneuver around freely because of how thick the book was and how much liquidity there was in the name. So that was this trade. Took a couple losses on it, and then the next day, on this day here, we had the huge gap up. Right, you notice these gap ups got bigger and bigger each day, and this run up here was really nice to see. Let's look at because in the pre-market it made a huge move, but obviously, you know, I'm still in bed at 4 or 5 in the morning. Otherwise, this would have been a really great area to get involved. And then it just kind of traded down into the open, made a move lower, and I thought, well, this might be dead. And I didn't want to chase it lower, even though there's still a lot of room to go. I would rather this have popped up, and we eventually got that later in the morning where you could short into. Because if you think about it, people who are chasing in here, there's a ton of bag holders that are long that we're chasing up in here. So you have all this supply, because if they can get out at break even or close, that creates a bunch of supply overhead. So that's kind of, so you have to think about that, right? If people are buying in these 8, 9 area and they see it go against them for a few hours and then they get a pop in their favor, they're going to want to get out as, you know, the best prices that they can get. And what that does is it creates overhead supply. So when you have these parabolic names with overhead, these bounces can be shortable most of the time. So that was the idea behind this one. And that's why I was short in here. We got a couple legs, push higher, and then we took a turn. I took my first short, and it kind of just chopped around, and then we got a nice flush here below VWAP. All right, covered a little bit, and then we had a nice consolidating bounce play back into the 10-day where I added some into it, and then we got the big capitulation move lower where I think it traded eventually all the way down below 3. Yeah, you can. So I was trimming off a lot into this, and then we ended up getting another leg lower before it kind of just tapered off and traded sideways for the rest of the day. But this was, you know, a really good trade. A ton of liquidity. You could have had huge size and made some really good money on this. I definitely didn't capitalize as good as I could have, but did make some really good money trading this. So that was a nice short. Felt good to make all that money back from the day before, and was really stress-free. Like I don't think I was red on this for very long, and it just worked the entire way until we got this huge capitulatory move on a ton of volume. I think it was doing about 2 billion shares a day, which is insane. So that was BYND. Highly recommend going back and studying that chart. Those types of plays can make your year, no doubt about that. RANI. So this was the follow-up day. Same day as BYND. Pull up this chart. So as you can see, we had similar to BYND, these huge gap ups and runs, and then we had a major extension, and then we had a huge gap into that major extension. Just really hard for prices to be able to hold that and go higher. So once you get to this point and you're still getting pushes like this, you can keep adding into it, or at least that was my conviction on this trade. I was looking at this chart, I was like, there's no way this thing could keep going. I'm gonna keep adding into this as it moved against me. And what I did, so the initial trade was we had the open and it traded lower. I was like, all right, I'm going to short on this weakness. I think this is, you know, it's going to fade pretty hard. Kept added a bunch. Ended up rebidding VWAP, and I was like, I'll give it to pre-market highs. I want to see if, because a lot of times what they'll do on these names is they'll run it through pre-market highs and reject it. And I've talked about this in the past in these small caps, because you have a lot of shorts in the pre-market and they'll use pre-market highs as their stop. So a lot of times the riggers or market makers will run it, do a stop run, and then reverse it, trapping, you know, getting longs in and then stopping out the shorts, and then they'll reverse it and pull the rug on everyone. So I didn't want to, you know, take the stop through pre-market highs and then see it do this and reject and have to chase to get back into it after taking a loss. So it ended up working out. We pushed above, held, and then it acted like it was going to go again, and it rejected really hard. And I added to it up here, and we got a really nice follow through. I added again through VWAP, and then just kind of chopped sideways. I got a couple little covers off into the low a day area, and then it just kind of ended up giving it up the rest of the day, and I was covering into it for a really nice move. And I ended up actually holding about 20% of the position overnight, and so I was able to cover that into the 2s this morning. So that was a really nice hold. Ended up working out really well. I don't really recommend people holding these small caps overnight for a swing, especially if you're new. Obviously you can see the gap risk in these is huge. I was comfortable with where I was at. I had a really good cost basis, really good cushion on it. So it would have taken a lot for this to have gotten me back in red. I would have had to gap up quite a bit. So I was comfortable holding it overnight and was able to get some follow through on it. So that was RANI yesterday. And then VSIG, this was today, I believe. All these trades kind of blur together. But yeah, this was this morning, just a big move here. Was hitting the scanners, decent volume. We started getting this run through see what I was talking about, the pre-market highs, where they run it through pre-market highs and then reject it, baiting in the longs, causing the shorts to squeeze out, and then they pull the rug on it after it fails. So I was shorting into this as it was starting to fail above pre-market highs, and then covered into this nice flush lower for a nice super easy win. So that was VSIG, nice little cash flow trade in small caps. What else? So IBIO was a pre-market runner. This one was starting to get, hit the scans. The news was nothing substantial. I started putting on, starter size, nothing too crazy. I was trading around this $2 whole dollar mark. I traded into it, and then I had orders actually layered out, like from 205 probably up to like 220 in case this thing did like a quick squeeze through twos. I'd be getting filled, and then see if it rejected. It only got one of the fills, and then it started to fail the $2 hold. So I added on the turn here, and then we got some really nice follow through where I covered into VWAP and a little bit lower. And then I started adding as it was holding. I added again on the back test of VWAP, and then we got another nice leg lower where I was covering into. And then I held a little bit through the open, got some more covers off, and then I stopped as it started to push through. It was coming into the high day. So nice win. Just kind of easy money trade, ended up working out really well. But you do have to be careful. I don't really recommend, if you're new to shorting these, to be shorting on the front side. Just wait for the turn, and then you have your high day as your risk, and you know where you're at in the trade. All right, because this could have easily kept running. And usually what I'll do is if I'm putting positions on the front side and it keeps running, I have a dollar amount that I'll stop out at. So if it's like $3-5 grand, I'll let it run to that point and then bail if it gets to it. And so I had a lot of wiggle room here because I wasn't super sized into it. I added a lot more size on this short here. All right, so that was IBIO. Another little small cap short this today was NMRA, just a big run out of nowhere. You can see, like if we go back, what I like to see on these is these 30 minutes. I mean, you can go back on this and see that it's like a flatline stock, has very little volume, and then all of a sudden you get these types of moves like this with huge volume, huge range. These oftentimes set up for really good reversals, and a lot of times they can be reversals like full round trips and some. Like I think even VSIG was one today. Yeah, this one did a full round trip, so I left some money on the table here. But you see these huge pops, failed, huge volume relative to what it does normally, and then we get the big reversal. So it's always nice to hold on to a little bit in case you do get this full round trip. But I do like to look at the 30-minute on this because you can get a good gauge first to the size of the move, as well as what the stock does normally. But if you get a huge 30-minute spike like that, the probabilities are so good that it's going to get a deep pullback eventually. So was shopping this. We got a nice rejection candle here through 250. I took it on the open of the next candle. I should have added through here on the lows, but I missed it, and then it just cascaded back into VWAP where I was covering some. And then usually after you get this big spike like this, bounces are shortable, especially if volume's light. Look how much lighter the volume was afterwards on this rebound after this initial push. This is shorts covering. Okay, this isn't, maybe some longs you're jumping in, but it's not enough, right? Like if you're going to make another leg like this, you got to have like equal or more volume than before. And this just wasn't given it. So that gives me confidence when I see that volume's dying off. It doesn't have the momentum to be making new highs. And so as long as it stays like that, I'm going to be adding into these pops higher. And so I added into this leg, covered into VWAP, and then it just kind of flatlined where it bled off. I covered some into the 210, and then it bounced back, and I stopped out of the rest of the position just above VWAP. So it was a nice win. I didn't get as much follow through as I would have liked. A lot of times, like I was showing you in VSIG, you can get huge reversals, and we just didn't get a full reversal on this one, and that's fine. Still a nice cash flow, easy money trade this morning. So that was NMRA, and I forgot to update this. So these trades are actually all gone. I didn't do anything in the long term or my swing account. I think I traded, trying to remember now. Oh, that's right. I was trading. I did do some puts on MBIS, which I actually stopped out of. And what actually would have worked out. Unfortunately, I sold for next week. I sold the 95s, I think, on this day, and then we've got another big follow through. And so once I'm down like close to 100% on the puts, when I'm short them, I'll just stop out, and because I don't want it to cascade and get out of out of hand. So you usually set 100% stop on these, and that's where I'll get out, so I know my risk. Unfortunately, I hit that on the way in, but because I ended up getting a nice bounce back at the end of the day yesterday, and then today we're bouncing out pretty good. So those puts will probably have lost a lot of premium. But I like doing the short puts on these plays, especially you get a strong move on a name with like a big headline and you get a sharp pullback. I like to sell some puts into those where you can look to catch the bounce on them. And then you could have done it on MP was another one I was looking at. I know you guys are trading around this as well. This is actually holding below the 50 now. I didn't end up selling any puts on this, but it was on my radar. I liked the MBIS chart a little bit better. This MP chart's a little concerning. You have, the breakout here. I already had it marked off. You have the breakout here, but then you have a really sharp rejection, right? So it's like the pop out, and then a couple days later we're right back below, and now we're trading back below the 50 day. So that's a little concerning. Maybe there's some more downside in it. I'm not sure, but we'll keep tabs on it. You can see the 10 and 20 day have curled over sharp now and are pointing down, and we're day 2 under the 50 day. So we'll see if this gets a deeper pull in. I do like it for a bounce play, so we'll keep it on the radar for next week. But Q's relentless, still holding 10 and 20 day, just grinding higher. No idea what it's going to do into the end of the year. Was really hoping for a pullback. I don't know if we're going to get it, but we'll see. We got CPI tomorrow. We got some of the China stuff coming to a point in November with the new tariffs and everything. Maybe that would be a catalyst for a pull in. Otherwise, it's probably just going to keep grinding higher. All right. So we'll see how it plays out next week. But that's what I have for you guys this week in my recap, and I will catch you on Tuesday. All right. Have a good one, guys.